Now it's time for Inspirational Women and my guest, Teri Secrest, a certified health and wellness coach, natural health educator, and CEO of The Joy of Living. Just this description sounds uplifting, and that's the focus of our conversation this morning. Teri Secrest, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Good morning. It's such a pleasure. I'm just delighted.
I am looking forward to this delight just permeating through this conversation and reaching out across the airwaves and really bringing such a positive and important perspective to this day and moving forward for all our listeners.
Absolutely. With all the news, there is so much to be thankful for and so many good things we can focus on right now. Beginning with not watching so much news.
Right. Yes. Isn't that something that, if we watch too much of a certain thing, it's just, variations on a theme, that begins to be the focus of our thoughts when we're not listening to the news.
I agree, Kate. I believe that whatever we focus on is what expands. And so when a little bit of fear gets in there, and boy, if we don't nip that in the bud, before you know it, our mind can just be very creative and go to every negative thing that could happen. So today, I believe we've got good news for your listeners.
And that, of course, is great news to know that that's happening because, in your work as a wellness coach, you've come in contact with a lot of people, and this comes from your experience of what you're hearing from them, right?
Yes. I've been a wellness coach for 25 years, and we've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. The challenges that people are dealing with, just for example, I work with a lot of parents right now that are beside themselves because their children, now suddenly they're thrown into this job of becoming a homeschool parent and feeling like they have no skill, no talent in this area. Then what do they do about their own job? Do they quit their job? What do they do? And then they've got the children home all day, and it's just pressure after pressure right now. It's really amazing. So, let's talk about the positive because everybody's been hearing about the negative. Kate, the first thing I want to encourage families to do, and it's really something fun to do as a family, get out, make a commitment, and take a power walk every day. Every day. No matter where it is, even if you live in a city, wherever you live, I'm sure there's somewhere you can go and get out because we've been sitting in the house for so long with some of these bad habits, and we have to break them. If we look at our life as a whole, Kate, and we say, if I don't make any changes, how am I actually going to feel 5 years from now? It's kind of a scary thought for some people. And I propose today that with a few simple changes, you are going to feel absolutely fantastic. You're going to make this a turning point for the better in your life. So getting out and taking a power walk, well, what's the big deal? It's a really big deal, Kate. First of all, I have a lot of clients that have shed many pounds by doing nothing dietary, by changing nothing in their diet, but just starting a power walk every day. So that's good for your weight management. Secondly, when you power walk, you uptake the oxygen into your brain. And many modern scientists believe the number one cause of depression is a lack of oxygen in the brain. So you might wake up and say, man, Teri, it's such a humdrum day. I don't even want to get out of bed. But you put those tennis shoes on and you get out there, and before you know it, you're feeling great. And it's because the oxygen is getting into your brain. So this is number one, and we all need to just increase the amount of water that we're drinking. It's so important to stay hydrated right now, and tea or coffee, that's not hydration. Water. And people say, oh, Teri, water's so boring. As a wellness coach, one of the things that I help these families with is getting some essential oils in their water. When you put things like lemon, tangerine, orange, peppermint, all of a sudden your water comes alive and you think, man, this tastes great. And people start doubling the amount of water and they notice everything and their skin looks better. So there's some areas that we can make these tiny little changes in for a big impact.
Wow, that sounds exciting. And you know what? I'm going to step back to your first point, though, as you were describing what we needed to do, and it sounds like a perfect and simple thing to do, but power walking. I get out to take a walk, but that isn't necessarily called a power walk, is it?
Exactly. So power walking, the difference is if you focus on your ankles and you say, every time I take a step, I'm going to push off with my ankle. And even taking, your arms can even become kind of a power tool by the way you hold your arms. That's going to speed up your walk. And it's very important because your ultimate goal is to get your heart rate going. You want to get your heart rate up, get your cardiovascular system moving, your circulatory system moving, and that's very different than just kind of slumbering along. When I first met my husband, he wasn't a big power walker. He was like a slumber kind of a guy. And I said, honey, I'm going to challenge you. And so eventually he worked his way up to literally walking 8 miles a day. Well, I know most people don't have time to do that, but I walk between 4 and 5 miles a day. And again, I'm in my 60s and I feel better than I ever did in my 20s. And a lot of it's because of walking.
And you look fabulous.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I attribute that to just these simple things. Another simple thing, Kate, in my 20s, I had severe hypoglycemia, and that is a blood sugar imbalance. And we come from a food-loving family. My mom had a French cooking school, and everything about our life was just the love of food. The only thing my mother didn't understand was that too much white sugar is very harmful. She didn't know that back in those days. So we would eat these fabulous, healthy meals, and then we'd eat a lot of sugar. So what we found out is that sugar depletes important minerals out of the body. What has everybody been doing right now during this stay-home period? Eating a lot of sugar. Well, sugar's very depressing. It pulls important minerals out of the body, and we need minerals like calcium for stress. And so all of a sudden, people are experiencing all of this stress. So again, we can replace that. We can still cook. I still bake cookies all the time. I use a very high quality maple syrup that and things like stevia and things that don't spike your blood sugar.
So definitely paying attention to those ingredients. We can still enjoy those little luxuries, if we call them luxuries, but in a very responsible way.
Yes, exactly. And you had kind of asked about what some of my clients are dealing with now, Kate. The number one issue people are trying to overcome right now is fear. And I hate to say it, but I feel like the media has really instilled fear in people. It's one thing to say, we have a problem here, okay, let's work on this, let's deal with this. It's another thing to talk about it 24/7. And I feel that it's very, very unfortunate. So people are dealing with fear. And I have a message today to your listeners. I want to give you a few simple tools today that can help you. In fact, if your listeners just pop me an email, just info@terisecrest.com, I want to send you a really fun document called More Joy Now. And it's 5 simple things that you can do every day without spending a dime, 5 simple things you can do to just be more focused on joy every day. And taking care of our heart right now, our emotional heart right now, is really important, especially if we're a parent with children at home. Our children are totally dependent on us, and they're dependent on seeing us be positive and having hope for the future. And so as a wellness coach about 25 years ago, Kate, up until that point, the only thing I was always recommending to my client is that food is your medicine, because it is. Food is always the first offensive position we can take with a health issue. 25 years ago, I had a dramatic experience, Kate. I was pregnant with our 3rd child, little Joseph. He's 25 years old now. And I went into super heavy labor 6 weeks too early as a result of taking an airplane flight. When the airplane went up to altitude, my stomach just blew up like a balloon, and I got really sick and went into heavy labor. So, we lived an hour away from the hospital. We lived on a horse ranch, and there was no way to drive an hour to the hospital. Well, we were going to have a home birth because we were into organic foods and dried herbs and all of these natural kinds of things. So the midwife was racing over to the house, timing my contractions, and suddenly she screamed at me and said I would deliver in 7 to 10 minutes. And she said, Teri, your baby's lungs are not fully developed. You could lose him. She said, I'm going to call a helicopter and have you flown to the nearest hospital. Well, I was terrified. And I said, look, just wait 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute to think about it. So in that 1 minute, I literally just said a prayer. I just said, God, is there anything strong enough in this house to stop heavy labor? I mean, is there a food? Is there anything? And I heard this impression in my brain that just shocked me because I didn't know anything. I heard oil of lavender. Mm-hmm. And I thought, lavender? How could that help me? What is lavender? And I forgot that about 3 months earlier, a friend had given me a bottle, and it was in our pantry, and I didn't know what to do with it. So my husband found it, and he said, Teri, what do I do with it? I said, I don't know, just marinate me. So, Kate, he puts like 25 drops on my stomach, like you marinate a turkey. Mm-hmm. And in 45 seconds, my labor stopped dead in its tracks, completely stopped. From this silly little bottle is like a $25 bottle of lavender oil. So just imagine that saved me a helicopter trip. We didn't have health insurance back in those days. Saved me the helicopter flight, probably weeks in the hospital, all of these things, this tiny little bottle of oil. And then we used it every day up until the day of the birth because I kept going into labor when I would get up to go to the bathroom. And then on the due date, I delivered a super healthy 10-pound, 3-ounce baby. Wow. And that's how I was introduced to what I call God's medicine, which is these little tiny bottles of oil we know as essential oil.
And what's interesting is I know that lavender is great for relaxing us, suggested to use if you're having trouble to go to sleep, rub it on your temples. Yeah. So that it makes so much sense that putting that on your belly relaxed you, right?
It did. And then when I started reading about some of the other properties of lavender, what really caught my attention, Kate, was it said good for muscle spasms. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had a giant muscle spasm. And then the more I read, it said that if you have a little pressure on your head, maybe you're having a stressful day and you think maybe you're coming down with a headache, you just take your lavender, rub it right where those tension points are, rub a little bit on the back of your neck. And then about sleeping, I learned that if you put it on your feet, I learned that the bottoms of our feet have nerve endings and that they transport it throughout the body. So just putting it on my feet before bed every night, I started to sleep better. Oh. And it just has these multiple uses. I like to say it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So that got me to the point as a wellness coach where I thought to myself, Teri, you might have eaten 10 pounds of broccoli, but that 10 pounds of broccoli wouldn't have helped you with those labor pains. So there's times in our life where we need more than just food. And that began a 25-year study. And so today, talking about our heart health, here's what I discovered, Kate. I hope you found this interesting. I discovered that the limbic region of our brain, it's known as the frontal lobe of the brain, is the emotional seat of the whole entire human body. It's where we store emotions. And it could be something happened to us yesterday, but it could be something that happened to us 5 years ago. It could even be something where somebody says, Kate, I don't know if you're that smart. I don't know if you're really going to amount to anything. I mean, what a horrible thing. But those kinds of emotions are things that we store in the limbic region of the brain. Now, if we go way back to the beginning of time, whether you're a believer or not, when Adam and Eve were put on the earth, they were put into this fragrant garden. They lived among trees and flowers and plants and shrubs. And when we were given our 5 senses, like, taste, hear, smell, sound, fragrance, or the sense of smell is one of our five senses. The funny thing is we rarely talk about it, do we?
Right. Only just, that food smells so good.
There you go.
Right?
There you go. In fact, it's funny because food produces a memory. So if your grandmother used to bake cinnamon rolls and you're walking down the street and you smell them, what happens? You think of your grandmother.
Right.
So smell produces either a good memory or sometimes a bad memory. Well, here's what scientists have discovered about plants and fragrances. So lavender's a good example. When you breathe lavender on your hands, it goes through the olfactory bulb in your nose to this part of the brain in 3 seconds, very quickly. And when it reaches the brain becomes a communication system to your body. So let's use the example of anxiety. A lot of people are feeling anxious right now in America. When you breathe in that lavender oil, or a blend that I work with that I love so much is called Stress Away Blend. You breathe it in 3 seconds, it reaches the limbic region, that memory of stress or anxiety comes up, and now your brain says, hey, Teri, you can let go of that. You don't need to hold that anymore. And suddenly your shoulders kind of relax. You go, man, my shoulders are relaxed. I feel so much better. It's hard to imagine that something could help you like this. I used to think that the only thing that could ever help me was either food that I swallow or a dried herb that I swallow. I mean, we're used to taking pills. And so this concept of being able to breathe something or even rub something on the body just was hard for me to understand. Then, Kate, there's another little connection here, Kate. Our skin is the largest organ in our body. So your skin is a living, breathing organism. So whatever you rub on your skin topically is going to go deep into the cells of your body rather quickly. So now, in another application, let's just say that you've been hiking. You haven't hiked for 5 years, and suddenly you get inspired to hike a mountain. Well, coming down, your knees are really hurting. Well, now there are certain plants and plant oils that are amazing for things like discomfort, inflammation, pain from, over-exercising. Now, when you take those same plants and you just put them on topically, like where you're having that discomfort, they go deep into the cells and create healing from the inside out. So as a wellness coach 25 years ago, I got to start working with over 200 different plant oils known as essential oils. And I was so surprised to learn that they all have connections to different parts of our body.
That is intriguing, and I'm waiting to hear about the discomfort one.
Yes, exactly. Well, the discomfort one I work with a lot. There's many, but my favorite is a blend called Panaway. It's kind of a little play on words, like pain away, but Panaway. And it's 5 or 6 different essential oils synergistically put into a blend of oil. And I had a terrible accident many years ago. I was playing with my dog, and he tripped me accidentally, just playing in fun. But I hit the pavement so hard, Kate, that I shattered my kneecap. Most painful thing, in your life, I think that could happen. And on the way to the hospital, I had to have surgery because it was shattered, but on the way to the hospital, I told my husband, grab the Panaway blend, grab the Panaway and marinate me. And he started marinating my knee. And the surgeon, the doctor was in surgery, so I had to wait for an hour to see the doctor. When she came out, I'm just sitting there calmly, and she'd been looking at my x-ray. She says, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, why aren't you crying? She said, your kneecap is shattered. Why aren't you crying? I said, because I don't have any pain.
Wow.
She couldn't believe it. So that's how fast those oils go into the deepest layers of the cells of the body and help us with things like inflammation and temporary pain and things like that.
Wow. Boy, and as you say, people would perhaps resort to drugs of some sort, medications, but for something so natural, I mean, isn't that
Yes, this is
exciting?
what's so beautiful. The only side effects we find are actually good side effects. you know, and the other thing that is so beautiful, so I've been able to raise all three children. My husband and I, raised three super healthy kids. And what we find is that not only are there no bad side effects, but there's only good side effects. So, in drugs, here's the thing, and I have great respect for doctors. I want to say that because I do believe that most doctors become a doctor because they truly, truly want to help people. The only thing is, most modern medications, the more you use them, the more you actually need them. Whereas with essential oils, the more you use them, the less you need them.
Going in the right direction.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. That's so positive and so constructive. So here we're dealing with some very critical things that are going on in our life about giving us calmness, about taking care of pain that we might have. But, when we're thinking of our skin, this organ that takes in so much, what about some of the chemicals now that are around us we're using because of this pandemic that we're in?
Yes, exactly. This is the thing. So, you have to be aware of this. Gosh, let me give you just a few statistics that are pretty mind-blowing. The average woman every single day applies 300 chemicals to her body, 80 before breakfast. We don't think about it. It's just we're so used to it. If we add up our skincare and the kind of shampoo that we use and the deodorant we use and all of these things, and some of the toxic overload, the symptoms we have are things like fatigue, joint pain, headaches, mood swings, allergies, and of course digestional things. Those are just some of the things. Now, the National Institute for Occupational Safety has studied 2,983 ingredients in our products that we use every day in our home. And they discovered that there's 884 toxic ingredients in them. 314 of these cause biological mutations. And 218 cause what? Reproductive problems. I can't tell you how many mothers bring their daughters to me that are in their 20s and 30s, and they're married, and they want to have children, and they can't conceive. Well, if you think about all of the meats that we have been eating with hormones in them, the large amounts of hormones that are put into, and I'm not vegetarian. I love meat, but I eat organic, grown meats. These toxics that we're putting in our bodies and all the pesticides and herbicides are affecting young women's hormones. So this is something to be aware of. Now, please call the health line. I would love to help you guys learn how to go in a natural direction. A great example is a simple thing called essential oil of lemon, and it's so inexpensive. I work with lemon in the sense of cleaning the household. Lemon is good because it is good for the white blood cell count in our body. It is a fantastic stain remover. It is a fantastic cleaner. And then I work with a group of products that have, I'll just list what's in this because you'll be so fascinated with this. I work with a cleaner that has clove, cinnamon bark oil, lemon, eucalyptus radiata, and rosemary. Now, that synergistic blend of those powerful plant oils, when we look at each of those individually, they all have a very important purpose. And when you put them together synergistically, this is a powerhouse. So let's just say that the quarantine is over and you start to invite people to your home for dinner. You want to have a very, very clean atmosphere in your home that protects your friends from germs, but also protects you from the wrong kind of germs. The problem with the average cleaner, it kills all the good stuff too. See, we were born with bacteria and viruses in our bodies. And so we don't want to kill all the friendly flora that lives in our intestines that acts like a little Pac-Man going around killing fungus, mold, and yeast. We've got to have those good probiotics in our gut. But what we're doing now is we're using such harsh chemicals that we're killing everything.
Right. And so there isn't that little army to fight back and protect us.
Exactly. Yeah. So please, guys, if you're listening today and you just want some natural solutions, please give us a call. Just call 833-645-5463.
Let's mention that once again, Teri.
Sure. 833-645-5463. And we'll be glad to send you some free videos, free information to educate yourself.
And of course, your website is also such a wealth of information.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please do visit my website. It's just terisecrest.com, and it's a little bit of an unusual spelling. So Teri is Teri, Secrest is SEC like Charlie, REST. So terisecrest.com.
So this is how we can best help ourselves through this time, because it's lasted longer than I know I was thinking it would, and now we just really are uncertain of when things are going to change, and it's going to be a gradual change. So this is the time to be looking at what we can do differently and better for ourselves.
I hope that your audience can have confidence in knowing this. Your body's immune system is like the general inside your body. It's like the army. It's like the general. And so you were given that at birth. You are meant to be able to fight off things, unlike, you may have been told. So rather than come from a place of fear, take time to study some of these things. Take time to learn how the human body works. We have 12 systems in the human body, such as cardiovascular, respiratory, hormonal system, immune system. And all of these beautiful systems are powerhouses. And they work alone, but they also work synergistically together. This is a great time as a family to do a little bit of study, a little bit of learning. Like you said, Kate, you can watch some free videos on my website and learn a little bit more about how your body works and how it's really meant to take care of these things. So, also in terms of our emotions, taking care of our heart health, I want to talk to you about something that my clients are using right now that we're seeing just a tremendous difference with. It's a very specific blend of oils. You might even want to write this down, those of you listening, when you give us a call. It's called Trauma Life, like the word trauma and the word life, Trauma Life. And when you just put a few drops, 2 or 3 drops in the palm of your hand, and you just sit there and breathe this for 5 or 10 minutes, once again, it will go to this region of the brain we discussed, the limbic region, and it will help you to release out of the body some of this anxiety that you've been holding in. This has been very effective. I had a very good friend in her 70s, and this was about 5 years ago. Her son was bit by a rattlesnake, and he passed on. And she just couldn't get over it, Kate. She just really struggled because he was only in his 40s. And she called me up one day and she said, Teri, I just can't get over this. Is there anything you can do to help me? And I said, of course, there's never any guarantees, but I said, this one blend has helped a lot of my clients with trauma. And she said, well, what do? I said, just keep it in your pocket and just breathe it several times a day. And she called me about 3 weeks later and she said, I just can't tell you how much that helped me.
Isn't that just beautiful that you, in a natural way, could help her to get that balance back in her life?
Well, I just feel like our Creator put all of these wonderful trees and flowers. It takes 5,000 pounds of rose petals just to make 1 pound of rose oil. That is amazing. And so that's why when you hear me say just a drop or two, it's because it took a lot of pounds of plant to get that drop or two of oil.
That's amazing. And I wish we could converse longer, but we've basically run out of time together. But I think, Teri, that you have given us such invaluable information, including to continue learning. And this might be great to use with our kids as, part of their education if we are doing teaching at home, right? Yes.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yes. Right. I believe that the future of medicine is going to change. I see more and more families that are becoming excited about taking more responsibility. And again, I love doctors. I just think sometimes we get so dependent instead of saying, I need to take some responsibility for my daily health care. And then when something, really drastic, if I break my arm, of course I'm going to go right to the doctor. But I really feel that this is a great time for us to make a shift and take that responsibility for our health care.
Sounds like such great words of wisdom. Teri, this is so fascinating. You have such a wealth of information to share. I'm glad that we at least got to, I think, scratch the surface. And let's refer people to your website once again to really get more in depth.
Oh, yes. Do visit me at terisecrest.com, TeriSecrest.com, and call our health line at 833-645-5463. And finally, send me a personal email. I get these emails personally. Send it to info@terisecrest.com. We'd love to help you.
Well, you've already been, I feel, such a great help, such a gift this morning, Teri Secrest. Thank you so greatly, and have a most wonderful day.
And keep doing all the great work you're doing, Kate. We appreciate you.
And with that, we're at the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Teri Secrest and Sunday Morning Magazine with Luke Miner, director of WA 529. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Click on the podcast tab, then Sunday mornings, and look for the show and guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of feeling optimistic, feeling like we have the gift of time to plan for the next steps in our life. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.